most dangerous war isn't fought with tanks. It's fought with words. In a single Truth Social post on November 1st, 2025, President Donald Trump threatened to send U.S. troops into Nigeria, guns a-blazing. Why would an American president threaten a country that is supposed to be its ally? Is the violence in Nigeria truly a simple religious war? Or is it a deep, ugly fight over land and money? And what does this reckless threat mean for the security of every single person living in West Africa? This is not about complicated politics. This is about how a foreign threat turns a local tragedy into a global crisis. We are going to expose the 3 simple lies behind the headline, showing why this invasion threat is the most dangerous diplomatic move of the year. The entire threat hinges on one simple idea: that Nigeria is engaging in a clean, simple religious war. Why is that a dangerous lie? On October 31st, 2025, President Trump went public, declaring Nigeria a country of particular concern, CPC, due to existential threats against Christians.
They're killing record numbers of Christians in Nigeria, and they have other countries very bad also. You know that part of the world very bad. They're killing the Christians and killing them in very large numbers. I'm not going to allow that to happen.
This is based on real violence. Christian groups, like the Christian Association of Nigeria, can claim that thousands have been killed by radical groups like Boko Haram in states like Plateau and Benue. But the simple evidence proves the conflict is much dirtier. Nigerian President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and many human rights analysts agree. The violence is mostly over land and water. It is a desperate fight between largely Muslim Fulani herders and largely Christian farmers for shrinking resources. Here is the key point. If the U.S. uses the simple religious war explanation, it makes it easier to justify a war. But by ignoring the economic reasons, the fight for land, the U.S. risks inflaming the situation, turning a complex, local fight into an unstoppable, ideological war between Christians and Muslims across the entire region. The truth is simple. It's not just religion. It's about survival and resources. This lie creates a simple but dangerous choice. It forces the world to pick a side in a conflict where both sides are victims of circumstance, paving the way for foreign interference under a moral banner. Why did President Trump choose the words "guns a-blazing"? And why is the Nigerian government treating this like a direct act of war? The specific threat made on November 1st, 2025 was direct. USA may very well go into that now disgraced country, guns a-blazing. This is not a polite diplomatic note. This is a direct threat to the country's sovereignty, its right to rule itself. Nigerian National Security Advisor Nuhu Ribadu immediately convened an emergency security meeting. Why? Because a U.S. invasion, even if it is fighting terror groups like Boko Haram, is illegal without the Nigerian government's consent. Presidential advisor Daniel Bwala stated that Nigeria would only accept aid if the U.S. respects the country's territorial integrity. This whole event is a massive geopolitical trap. If the U.S. sends troops without an invitation, they will not only be fighting terrorist groups, but also instantly turning the entire Nigerian military and population against them. They create a new, powerful enemy simply by ignoring the laws of sovereignty. The African Union, EU, has already warned against external interference, showing the entire continent is watching. The simple truth is this. The threat was designed to pressure President Tinubu, but it risks doing the exact opposite. It risks uniting Nigerians, both Muslim and Christian, against a foreign enemy, which is exactly what terrorist groups want. If the threat is so dangerous and complex, who is the real target? And why did U.S. politicians immediately reject it? The most powerful evidence is the reaction from Washington. Senior U.S. politicians, such as Congressman Greg Meeks, Democrat New York, called the threat reckless and dangerous rhetoric. Why? Because they know the threat isn't aimed at terrorists in Nigeria. It's aimed at voters in America. The threat is political posturing for his conservative Christian base in the U.S., but the real cost is paid by U.S. soldiers and African stability. For years, U.S. diplomacy, military aid, and intelligence sharing have been carefully managed to keep Nigeria a stable ally. Trump's threat instantly undoes that trust and makes every U.S. diplomat and aid worker in Abuja and across Africa less safe. Analysts from the Council on Foreign Relations, CFR, warn that if the U.S. were to act unilaterally, every local terror group, from ISWAP to Boko Haram, would suddenly gain a massive recruiting tool. They could easily paint themselves as freedom fighters defending Islam and the nation against foreign Christian invaders. The simple word invasion has turned the continent's most populated nation into a potential strategic disaster zone. The simple consequence of using such specific, inflammatory language is this: a threat that was supposed to save Christians may actually doom U.S. interests in Africa and dramatically increase the danger for everyone in Nigeria. Before we go, we need to address our promise to you. We know we said the last video would be about the China debt trap, but when this massive threat from a former U.S. president broke, we had to cover the immediate crisis first. If you still want the China debt trap video, let us know in the comments below. You just saw how a single political threat turned a local crisis into a global catastrophe. But this is part of a much bigger pattern. The U.S. is losing influence, and Africa is becoming the new battlefield for superpower politics. The world is shifting faster than anyone predicted. If you want to understand the strategic moves being made by the countries fighting to replace the U.S. and why these changes will impact your life, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss our future deep dives into the next global crisis. New reports drop every 3 days. Thank you for watching.